Hello and welcome to our Eleiko webinar. We'll get started in just a few minutes while people trickle in. Had over 300 people registered. It's awesome to see. We're thankful for you guys to join in on a learning experience. Today we'll be talking about kettlebell training. And as people trickle in here, I'm just going to throw up a quick poll to see who is all watching here. So which of the following best represents you? We launch this poll. We got strength and conditioning coaches, we got personal trainers, we have a few athletes, quite a bit of fitness enthusiasts. We'd love to see that. And other. If you want to go ahead and describe your other, you can type in the questions box. Let us know who you are, where you're from. Again, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time joining us, my name is Patrick Warmel. I am the Tactical Education Manager here at Eleiko. And it looks like we're slowing down with people coming in. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, today we're going to be talking about kettlebell training. Last month we talked about programming and getting started with a new program. So hopefully we're able to integrate some of this knowledge together. And we'll be having more of these webinars or strength talks on a monthly basis. Next month we're going to be talking about weightlifting. If there's anything that you would like to learn more about, again, let us know. Type in the comment box so we're able to provide you more of what you're looking for. So who we are at Eleiko, we're really here to make the world stronger. And we can do that with our equipment and our education. Again, my name is Patrick Warmel. I have over a decade of experience with coaching and educating people across various demographics and understand the value of consistently pursuing a higher level of performance, continuing to learn, and acting with kindness. And these webinars and our education combines a lot of our systems and science with practical application. And that's what we're really trying to give you, is some practical application that you can bring with you to your own facilities in your fitness journey, whether that's weightlifting, powerlifting, functional training, or even tactical training. So when we grow stronger, we become healthier, happier individuals, and together we can make the world stronger. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll get started with our kettlebell information. You know, the bottom line up front really with kettlebell training is, you know, it's an incredible tool for strength training, and it's a great training tool for really any free weight or functional strength training space, whether that's at home or even at a commercial gym. Obviously, these are getting a lot more popular, and I think it really comes down to pretty much anyone can benefit from kettlebell training. If you have roughly 6 feet of space where you're not going to be bumping into things, and you have the physical ability to safely host a nice bell up, then you know kettlebells likely have a lot to offer. And you know there are a few more functional forms of fitness than moving dynamically with an offset weight. And we're going to get more into the benefits of kettlebell training and what we can do to actually implement kettlebell training throughout this talk. And as a quick disclaimer, we are talking kettlebells today, but keep in mind, I'm not saying it's the only piece of equipment you should use or making a case for kettlebells over barbells or any other equipment. We're simply just giving some general knowledge on kettlebell training, and it's a great tool to integrate into all your training. So the first thing that we want to kind of define here is the kettlebell types. The kettlebell, it comprises a bell, a handle, and the horns that connect the handle to the bell. And the bell itself is the round cannonball shaped with a nice flat bottom. The kettlebell designs vary on the market. Many different types and shapes out there. Some with concave faces or in a triangle shape. They can be loaded with plates. However, Eleiko's kettlebells are designed for optimal performance and delivering a great lifting experience. Also very long lasting and durable. And they are designed with high grade iron, again, shaped like a cannonball. And I think this ensures that the benefits of using the training tool is maximized. So we have a training kettlebell and a competition kettlebell. Our training kettlebell, again, cast iron, it's well durable, well balanced, and it's comfortable for beginners, especially when they are able to do two-handed exercises, get two hands on the same kettlebell or one kettlebell, a lot more comfortable. There's a wide range of handle and bell sizes with these training kettlebells. They have smaller weight increments, so you can see, it's a 2 kilogram weight increment from 4 to 20, and it gradually increases the weight increments as the weights get heavy. These are excellent for space friendly, and they are both of them are very versatile for the types of exercises that you're doing and also your fitness goals. With our competition kettlebell, these are going to have a consistent bell handle, and the window is between the bell and the handle itself. So this is the window here. And that's the key difference between the competition and the training kettlebell. All the sizes are consistent, whether that's the bell, the handle size, and this makes smooth transitions between weights. Having a consistent handle size can reduce the grip fatigue, especially during higher reps and with heavier bells, and it has a smoother handle compared to the training kettlebell. So again, kind of saves with your hands and excuse me, your grip strength. And these are the official bells for kettlebell sport. So if you're going to be doing some competition style or kettlebell sport, these would be the kettlebells that you would be using. These ones are also nicely colored, so it's easy to pick out of the weight space, and pretty easy to navigate there. I'm going to pop up one more poll here while we continue on, and I just want to know what your experience is with kettlebells. What do you actually use kettlebells for, if you use them currently? So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. So do you participate in kettlebell sport? Do you use kettlebells as your primary equipment? Do you integrate them with other pieces of equipment, barbells, dumbbells? Do you never use kettlebells? If so, I'm going to try to make a case for it here. And then if you have any other suggestions, comments. Wow, there's about 81% that integrate kettlebells with other equipment. I'm with you on that. There's a few that use kettlebells for their primary piece of equipment, and there's also about 10% that have never used kettlebells. So great, we'll give you some more information on that. But again, I think I'm with most of you. I integrate kettlebells with other pieces of equipment. I think it's a great tool, again, to kind of use to complement other traditional types of strength training. When we're talking about the value of kettlebells, really, they are portable. They won't be rolling around, you know, if you're trying to transfer them from one spot to the next. And also, you really only need 1 or 2 kettlebells to get a great workout. There's a huge library of exercises that you can do just with one single kettlebell. So, you know, again, if you have, you know, one kettlebell in the corner of your room, you basically have a gym, that I like to say. So the versatile, you know, have an extensive range of exercises, and can also provide stimulus or different adaptations depending upon, you know, how you're actually moving with the kettlebell. So there's a lot of research out there that actually like to use the kettlebell swing a lot in the research, and we'll get into that a little bit more here as we go along. But they absolutely can improve your strength, power, and endurance qualities. The other thing, you know, especially working with the tactical population, yes, they can be used individual use, obviously, but they are great in group training when you have lots of people, whether it's a small group or even large group or teams, where everyone can get their hands on an appropriate weight for them. And you can still be doing a lot of power work, strength work with, you know, limited equipment, limited space for that. So absolutely valuable for group training. I think the biggest difference, you know, between, we get this question a lot, why choose a kettlebell over a dumbbell? And that's because of its, you know, offset load. If you're trying to get a little bit more, you know, balanced throughout the body and target more core musculature or your pillar musculature, your hips, your torso, your shoulders, the gravity forces of the weight are much different on a kettlebell than a dumbbell. Dumbbell, it's very center, and with a kettlebell, it's going to be offset. And this is actually used in, again, a lot of the research out there, that because of the offset gravity forces, it requires the core and other stabilizers, like your shoulder stabilizers, to activate more. And especially when performing like unilateral movements, or when you're holding the kettlebell on one side of the body, such as like a single arm overhead press. And the main thing that distinguishes the kettlebell from the dumbbells is that offset nature of the load. The kettlebell is pulling you not only down, but also off to the side. And even as I'm pressing up and rotating the kettlebell, now I have to engage so the kettlebell doesn't pull me backwards. So that's the main thing. You know, it's actually amazing the amount of people that I've worked with that have some shoulder issues. And when they're doing overhead pressing, the dumbbell, it just bothers them. It's, you know, whether or not it's the range of motion that they have, but when you give them a kettlebell and they press up overhead, it's like a miracle just happened. So there's something about that offset load, I believe it's the offset load, that helps with overhead pressing in a more efficient manner. It almost requires you to have, you know, more stricter form with the key musculature activation for performing some of those movements. When we're talking about the same thing, the offset load and the center of gravity, it has that impact with your core strength. So, you know, when you're pressing a dumbbell or barbell overhead, forces your body to improve its mechanics on how to stabilize the body. And actually, the American Council of Exercise sponsored an 8-week study to see how effective kettlebell training was compared to just a control group, to keep it simple. Kettlebell exercises included swings, snatches, cleans, presses, lunges, as well as Turkish get-ups with moderate to lighter load. And the most dramatic increase in strength came from abdominal core strength, which was boosted about 70%. And meanwhile, dynamic balance showed a significant improvement. And I think that's due to the engagement throughout the core and having to control, not being pulled to one side when having the kettlebell on that side. So also subjects who completed the kettlebell training showed significant improvements in VO2 max, lower body strength, and as well as grip strength. And the grip strength comes with the handles a little bit thicker than that of a dumbbell. And it requires your fingers, hands, and forearms to work harder to hold on, especially going through more dynamic nature movements, such as the swings, the cleans, the snatches. And your gripping muscles get a tough workout without you even really thinking about it. The other thing with the grip strength is a lot of the kettlebell training involves time circuits or flow-like movements, and during that time you don't drop the bell for it could be minutes at a time, which is a big contrast to some of the other traditional style resistance training. So you can use different types of grips holding a kettlebell, whether you're holding a kettlebell, a single kettlebell with 2 hands, a single arm. By the way, when you're holding it by the handle goes diagonal through the palm as you grip, as well as holding it in a bottom-up style. You can hold it by the bell. So there's many different ways you can modify the position of the kettlebell relative to your body that will give you some adaptations and some variety within your movements. For full body strength and power, when you're using dynamic movements like swings and cleans and snatches, high pulls even, many of these staple kettlebell lifts require you to move heavy weight quickly or moderate weight quickly. And you'll find that the more you practice with kettlebells, the more efficient you become at force development. When you're getting a little bit heavier weights, you're going to be more towards the force continuum than the velocity continuum, but this can absolutely improve your athleticism. You're able to perform your traditional strength and functional exercises with greater speed, improving your general physical preparedness. And this allows and paves the way for more advanced exercises and performance outcomes. So the design of the kettlebell allows more dynamic movements where you can actually move the kettlebell around your hand and forearm for explosive movements. It's more natural, and you're able to get more velocity out of that. So kettlebell exercises are also meant to be done with precise control and coordination. So it doesn't always have to be explosive or fast in nature. We can actually slow it down and make it more precise, controlled movement, like using a kettlebell windmill, for an example, or the Turkish get-up. And this is just increasing the functional capacity, where strength training improves the efficiency, really which at the body, the nervous system is activated, the muscles are being activated, and increases the reaction time, your balance, and ultimately the risk of falls. So really, again, anybody can benefit from using kettlebells whether it's increasing your core strength, your balance, or your overall coordination, moving through different planes of motion and different speeds of motion. And then the last, I call it, the fun is in italics, because some people will argue that there's no such thing as fun conditioning, but with a kettlebell, you can integrate multiple movement patterns and really exercises, again, to make it more of like a flow or dance-like conditioning. And I think when you have a lot of integration with the types of exercises that you're using, classics like the clean and press or the snatch, the transition between these movements are going to get your heart rate up, especially if you're working for a period of time, and moving through the different planes of motion adds some variety or some variability in there, where you're taking your constant, or you're changing your body positions and your actions, and that can positively change your performance. You're getting better proprioception. You're getting more range of motion control through that range of motion. Also, getting altered muscle recruitment and improving your general strength. So again, can be used for strength training, power training, and even some metabolic conditioning. So if you are in the market for choosing a kettlebell, it's important to really know what to consider. So the choice between competition kettlebells and training kettlebells really is going to depend on your specific goals, your preferences, and the nature of your training routine. Many of you said that you use or you integrate kettlebells with other equipment, so you might want to take that into consideration. If you're using it primarily as the only piece of equipment, then I assume that you're trying to be more specific and efficient with just the major kettlebell movements. So you're going to want consistency throughout that kettlebell and the kettlebell weights. So training goals, consider, for general strength training and general fitness, training kettlebells are going to be more versatile. If you're going to be more specific to competition kettlebells or just using a single piece of tool, then competition kettlebells might be the choice for you. Again, the handle size comes into play there. The weight ranges and increments will be something to consider, as well as if you're buying a set of kettlebells or just trying to slowly build a collection of them. So there are those options. You can learn more about that at eleiko.com. And again, can't really go wrong with it. Just you can get more out of it when you know what your training goals are and how you're actually going to use the kettlebell. So if we're talking about, maybe you only do have 1 or 2 kettlebells that you're using, or maybe you have multiple kettlebells to using, maybe you have a whole set to be using. Either way, knowing how to adjust the complexity of your exercise selection is crucial. We use EPA for this in most of our online courses, our live courses. You'll see this, and it's equipment, position, and action. So this is just a quick framework to be able to adjust your training prescription or manipulate the complexity of the movement for using your different equipment being used. So are you using 1 kettlebell or 2 kettlebells? Are you using a training kettlebell or a competition kettlebell? And then how the kettlebell is actually positioned relative to your body, and that can include your grip. So again, the kettlebell can be gripped by the handles, the horns, or by even the bell itself. And gripping the kettlebell by the handle be mostly the mainstay for most of your exercises, but exercises like the goblet squats, where we can hold it by the horns or even by the bell, will be more user-friendly. As well as where it's located within the body. So you can have a symmetrical hold where you're holding kettlebells in both hands, or asymmetric, which would be like an offset rack. If I had two, then it would be a double rack, kettlebell rack. It can be held high, so overhead, can be held at the center line, and it can also be held by the thighs in more of a suitcase hold or a low hold. And then you can also adjust your body position, whether you are in a more bilateral stance, so you're in a two-legged stance where both feet are symmetrical. You could be in a staggered, where one foot's slightly in front of the other, or we could even be in a single leg or a unilateral stance. All ways to modify the complexity of the movement. You can see how a bilateral deadlift may be more user-friendly than a single leg deadlift, at least initially. We can always work our way to increase the complexity as we move through either a program or even a training session. And then for our actions, this is how we ultimately ingrain patterns and increase our strength through movement. Again, we use the major movement types, whether it's a push, pull, squat, hinge, lunge. And again, this doesn't mean that the exercises have to be boring or that you're doing the same things over time. You can absolutely manipulate these things to give you a slightly different response and provide some novelty and varying stimulus. The action can include different ranges of motion, where we're using progressive mastery to improve our coordination. So starting with a little bit narrower range of motion into full range of motion. The velocity that we're actually performing the action at, so we can progress the force velocity spectrum as the client athlete develops. And we can even use some different contraction types, whether it's more of an isometric exercise, if we're slowing the movement down, more like an eccentric emphasis, or if we're just trying to get more ballistic concentric emphasis, to all give you a very specific training adaptation. And the tempo. The time under tension is also something that you can vary through your action types. So if we look at kettlebell exercise selection, these are just some of them. Again, there is an extensive list of kettlebell exercises. Like to kind of divide this up into what you're actually trying to train for, what adaptation that you are seeking. So we're always thinking about the why first. Again, these are just a few where you can do, the main ones, a clean, snatch, or swing, and all ways that you can alternate the complexity of the single exercise. For an example, looking at the clean, we can be doing a power clean in a one repetition at a time. That can easily be more complex if needed by doing it continuously without a break in repetitions. Can change up the equipment by adding a kettlebell to our clean, so doing a 2 kettlebell clean. We can add even more complexity by alternating our cleans, so doing one clean on the side bring it down, going to the other side. And we could add the push jerk to it as well. So just a simple demonstration on kind of starting out with a lesser complexity, moving to a greater complexity, all with the same movement and just adjusting our equipment position or action. So if we look at the kettlebell swing, this is Rodney Korn, our Director of Education here. And actually, most studies, again, like I said before, have been investigating the biomechanical properties of kettlebell training using the swing solely. I would like to see more of it be coming out using different types of movements. I think it's just the easiest one to be able to collect data for, whether it's force production, the arc of the swing, as well as fatigue and power output. But kettlebell swings produce higher ratios of horizontal to vertical ground reaction forces than jump squats or even squats. So it may be useful for training for sporting action involving more horizontal propulsion, such as like sprinting. So pretty much any sport involves some sort of sprinting. So it might be a good alternative, especially in a large group setting where either space or equipment is limited. And before a client can really start performing cleans, or either whether it's a swing, clean, or snatch, it's important for them to understand proper technique, and it can be simply starting off with a kettlebell deadlift. For me, if they have the kettlebell deadlift down, which we'll see here in the next slide, I like to actually start the kettlebell swing by doing singles. So whether the kettlebell is actually starting on the ground like a deadlift, we're swinging once and placing the kettlebell back down on the ground in our starting position. Almost like you're hiking a football, throwing it in front of you about chest height, and then coming back down. That can kind of do a couple things, really. One, you're reinforcing the starting position and how we need to create tension throughout the body. So keeping the feet firmly on the ground, you are engaging your core musculature and also your lats. You can almost try to break the horns and kind of snap them off the kettlebell. This all kind of reinforces the how we transfer energy throughout the body. It also helps the dismount of kettlebell swings. So learning that technique, very important before going into just a straight dynamic or continuous fashion. So I typically like to teach the kettlebell swing with a single swing and then a double swing, and then you can go to more of a continuous swing if necessary. And then our power clean, very similar. Again, like to teach it by doing a single clean before we get into more of a continuous clean. So very similar nature with we're using a hinge pattern. So, the chest is going to be more parallel to the ground versus, having the more of a squat pattern where your chest is more vertical, where you could almost see the lettering on your shirt. You can see just the top of the lettering, the Eleiko logo on Rodney's shirt there. So hinge is going to be most of our power exercises that involve our swings, our cleans, and our snatches. When we're talking about our primary strength, we got our lower body and upper body. Lower body, again, going to the movement patterns, we got our squat, our lunge, our hinge. For our upper body, we have a push and pull that can be done in a horizontal, so moving weight away from the chest or to the chest, and vertical, moving the weight above the head or down to the body. These are typical, traditional strength training exercises where we're varying the body position or our equipment that we're using. So variations include changes to the starting position and postures, the limbs being used, and the equipment. Moving from bilateral, having a one-legged emphasis, or even going to one leg, like the offset one-leg squat. The bottom-up lunge, now we can have different grip, having the bell up, moving into a lunge position and back. Upper body, we can use different variations of, our, again, traditional bench press, bent over rows, by, using either, 2 arms, 1 arm, for alternating arms, or even doing reciprocal, so almost like a piston-like fashion. Here's some examples. Again, our goblet squats, you can see Rodney keeping the weight right at the center chest, elbows are tight to the rib cage. Okay? And you can even, I love to cue clients, if you wanted a little bit more tension throughout the body, making it more full body rather than just holding the kettlebell here and relaxate, you can almost tell them to try to rip the horns off the bell. Now I'm engaged all throughout the body, and it's not just a lower body exercise by any means, it's a total body exercise. For our deadlift, again, a great one to start people off with, and also starting to create some benchmarks and marks of achievement. So really, before I have anybody touch any other piece of equipment, whether it's an open bar or barbell doing a deadlift, I have them do a kettlebell deadlift. This one sets you up into a great position where the kettlebell can be about mid-foot or even to the heel. And you have to, in order to grab onto the kettlebell, you almost sit back into that hinge position, like you're closing a door with your butt, and it gets you into a natural hinge position. Then you only have to work on, maintaining that flat back, and it's a great one to start people off on. And typically, whether it's a fairly heavy weight for the ability, if they're able to hold form for 8 to 10 repetitions, okay, now you've graduated, you hit that benchmark, that expectation. Now let's go to the open bar or the barbell, or even 2 kettlebells at that point. And for your lateral lunge, again, this is just an example of how you can hold the weights down by the thighs, straddling the working leg, and this is more of a one-legged emphasis movement for your primary lower body strength. For your upper body strength, you have, again, examples of bent over row, bench press, and these are all can be found on our exercise library. If you go to eleiko.com, find the education tab, we do have a extensive video library, exercise library, with over 250 exercises there. Not just kettlebells, but also dumbbells and barbells, cables. Some variations, again, could be an alternated bench press. You could have half your body off the bench, which is going to even target your core even more. But again, the amount of clients that used where they felt discomfort with using dumbbells or a barbell, gave them a kettlebell, and it's amazing how just the offset nature of the kettlebell can change the engagement where they can move pain-free, and that's our goal, especially trying to make people stronger for life. And then we have our secondary strength movements. These, again, include different variations where we can carry excellent exercise using kettlebells, whether it's a farmer carry, holding 2 weights by the side, if we're holding the weights at the chest or overhead. And then there's a ton of core exercises that we can be doing with our kettlebells. Pretty much any unilateral exercise is going to require the core to work and to be engaged to maintain proper form and performance. We could do rotational lifts, so starting from one side, bringing it over to the other side, as well as coming back down in a chop-like motion. A pull-off press is holding the weight straight out. We can be in a plank, doing some plank pull-throughs, so moving the kettlebell from one side to the other. And we can do slow controlled motion, our kettlebell windmills, halos, and get-ups. So an example of the front wrap carry, nice and controlled, elbows are tight, okay, and having to maintain proper engagement through the core without leaning back so much. So it's like anti-extension and anti-rotation or lateral flexion movement. And then we have our get up. I love this one for actually movement preparation. A lot of things have to engage here. This is the full get up, Turkish get up, some people call them. But you can also break these down, especially when teaching. I like to break it down to the 7 different movements. So you're starting with just going to the elbow and back down, then going to the hand back down, and to the bridge back down. We got a lot of shoulder stability, got a lot of core engagement, and even some hip engagement there with the bridge. So how to program kettlebell training? If you already have a routine in place, a lot of you do, and just integrate your kettlebells with other equipment. You can, use this, in a variety of different ways, where you don't just want to use, one piece of equipment, or if you don't want to throw out your other training methods, you can start to incorporate them within your movement preparation. So after moving through some tissue prep, where you're foam rolling and doing some body weight dynamic movement, kettlebells can play a key role in restoring healthy movement patterns before going into more of your heavier lifts. So performing a goblet squat before a barbell back squat can help ingrain movement pattern and body positions with a little bit lighter loads. Can help increase your nervous system activation before going into your heavier loads. If you're planning on doing some barbell bench pressing, using a non-fatiguing weight and performing get-ups or a clean and press can help activate key musculature, like the hips, the torso, and the shoulders, and improve the ability to transfer energy throughout the body. You can use them just doing your traditional strength training, like gave you plenty of examples there, and using them as accessory lifts. So consider switching them out for your current lower body accessory exercises with kettlebell variations. Again, getting a different variety with your exercises is going to set you up for better overall performance, where we're not training in the same strict parameters all the time. That can actually set you up for overuse and injury potential. This is a great way to add that variation and get a different stimulus while actually improving your overall functional capacity. Conditioning. If you don't do conditioning, your traditional conditioning, whether it's running, biking, rowing, and you really like to just use weights, use a kettlebell for your conditioning. Using time blocks, so setting a specific time and pace, and doing 3 or 4 exercises, getting as many rounds as you can there. You can use a lighter load, doesn't need to be a lot, and work on your movement quality, as well as getting your heart rate up there and increasing your aerobic capacity. Another, conditioning methods, you can use complexes, you can use circuits, you can use that continuous flow, where again, you're using a lighter weight with almost like a dance-like transition from one movement into the other. And I also like to use kettlebells kind of in the same context, when you're just really you're just trying to move in different planes, you're trying to get a different stimulus, a variation to your training. You can use them as active recovery. Since it's low impact, you're encouraged kind of to lift at sub-maximal loads and focus on movement quality. Kettlebells are very effective for helping your body recover between more intense strength training. Your blood's going to get flowing, your heart's pumping, and you're also activating muscles without adding a whole lot of strain or unwelcome fatigues. So doing circuits, 1 to 2 sets or a time block for 8 to 10 minutes, and just choose the 4 to 6 of those key movement types: a squat, a row, a press, a hinge, a carry, and a core work. You have a circuit right there, and go through that once or twice, and that's a pretty solid active recovery. We're not, again, trying to get a ton of stress on the body. So here's a sample workout. Again, this is just a sample, but how you could just do a kettlebell training session if you preferred. So movement preparation, you could do a slow kettlebell halo where you're bringing the kettlebell around the body or around the head and the shoulders, nice and slow and controlled, getting a lot of core activation, shoulder activation, and stability. Moving to a half get up, so only doing the bottom half of the get up. Again, getting some shoulder stability, core stability, and hip stability in there. Also, moving through different movement patterns and different planes of motion as well. Move frontal, transverse, sagittal plane. For our power emphasis, doing movements where we're able to explode, kettlebell swings, cleans, snatches. And I also like to pair that with some sort of rotational dynamic movement. So moving from a rotational kettlebell lift. So kettlebells on one side, and I'm trying to get it across my body, full extension as fast as I possibly can. So different power work that you can do. I would typically do one exercise, rest, and then the other exercise, and then rest before completing another set. You want efficient rest if you're going to actually try to train for power, so you're able to explode, and fatigue's not a factor there. For strength / conditioning, this is going to really depend on what your training goals would entail. This same workout can be a strength workout. This can be a conditioning workout. Depends on how you set up and organize the flow of the training. So for a strength emphasis, I would suggest completing each exercise with a heavier weight, keeping maybe 1 to 2 reps in the tank, and have significant rest between each set or exercise. If for general strength, you could complete this as a complex. So doing all the reps, this is a single kettlebell workout. So you could do, all the reps on one side of the body, rest, then work out the other side of the body, rest, and then repeat. Choosing a weight that's manageable to complete with solid form for the weakest lift. And for me, that would be probably the push press. So I'm picking a weight that I can do 5 to 10 repetitions with the overhead press with all the other ones, making it more of a complex where I'm not putting the weight down until I complete all of them on one side. If you want to make this more conditioning or metabolic work, the options are really endless here. You can do all the reps on both sides and rest as needed. You can make as many rounds as possible in a set time. So I'm going to put 8 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to go through these 4 movements as many times as I can, and resting as needed. You can also turn this into more of a controlled flow with a lighter weight and just trying to move in different ranges of motion. And again, different planes of motion. So if you are interested in more specific training programs where they can be, more of a a lengthy time with the reps and the sets and how you actually perform them, let us know. Let us know in the comments. This again helps us provide more of what you're looking for, and that definitely helps get some feedback. And just remember, with any training, it doesn't need to be a hard or a high intensity training session every single time. Go off of your daily ability. Understand how you feel physically, mentally, how you slept, and what's your nutrition and hydration like. If you're coming in with a high intensity training session and you're kind of, you're sluggish, you're feeling really sore, you have lots of aches and pains, don't be afraid to modify that training session and hit it hard when you're feeling good, when you've had when you're well rested, when you're eating, hydrating right. Get after it when you're feeling great. And really, no matter, it should almost have like this wave-like effect, where we have some medium intensity days, some high intensity days, some low intensity days, and some active recovery days. So it's important to have a plan, but don't forget you can change the plan if needed based off of the raw score that we speak so frequently about. That determines your daily ability. So as we wrap up here, if you want to learn more about what we have to offer, equipment, gear, education, you can use this QR code. You can go to eleiko.com. Again, we have extended learning opportunities, sales support, and contact us. Let us know what you're trying to get more of, and we like to provide that for you. Like I said, our education combines systems and science. So if you're looking for more information around kettlebell training, here are some references for you. You will be getting a copy of the presentation. This will be on the website as well for future reference if you want to refer back to that. And that is all I have. I have a few more minutes here to answer any questions if I can. Doesn't look like there are any. So thank you for joining, everyone. Again, next month we'll be talking about weightlifting. Be on the outlook for the registration, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.